Gave a great interview for. I'll ask the first question. Tell us about your association with creature designers.
Well, in a way, I'm a creature designer somehow. You know, I've been obsessed by monsters all my life, and monsters are a very large reason, or part of the reason I make what I make. And you know, I ran a makeup effects shop that did the effects for my movies when I was a kid. I ran it for a decade. So, you know, I sculpt, I paint, I still paint and repair anything that breaks in my collection in Bleak House. I repair it, I paint it, I do a very good job, I restore things, and I still paint models to this day. And I think it's because I'm part of a monster kid generation. So, you know, monsters and I have a very incestuous relationship, you know?
In an alternate universe, is there a Guillermo del Toro who remained a special effects makeup artist?
Well, I started as a director, so I was doing Super 8s with terrible effects, and then I was doing terrible effects on Super 8s. But so I don't think I would. I don't think I had the patience to deal with some of the people behind the camera that didn't understand the monsters. One of my last few jobs, I almost came to a fist fight with a director. He avoided it, you know. So I don't know. It was very difficult for me to create the creatures, and then they were lit wrong, they were shot wrong, they were cut wrong, most of the time. So I mean, part of the discipline that you get with someone like Dick Smith is that he told you your effect is not an effect unless it's lit effectively, is shot effectively, and is edited effectively. Your creation is not, it can never be perfect by itself. In fact, when you see a great prop or a great puppet, most of the time, if you see them in person, 85% of the time, they don't look good, you know, and you need to light them properly, blah, blah, blah. So you're in a partnership with, sometimes when you are a creature maker, you're in a partnership with a cinematographer that may not understand it. Famously, Dick Smith went through all the trouble of creating the makeup for Little Big Man, and then the cinematographer lit it with a little red light from the recorder, and he was immensely frustrated, whereas he was absolutely grateful and in love with the cinematography on Amadeus, the way Salieri was lit, you know? So you depend on the kindness of strangers. And when you are talking about directors, a director that shoots creatures needs to understand that the creature by itself is not going to work. That you need to, it's like a strange animal. If you buy a gecko and you put it in a Campbell soup can, it's going to die. But if you create a terrarium and you put little food and little water and a plant, and you have a sun lamp, the creature will survive. It's the same with effects. So it was very frustrating. I don't think I could have. I'm an okay sculptor. I'm a good painter, but you know, I would have murdered someone.
Some questions from you guys. Yes, Ed.
I haven't seen the movie yet, but one of the things around these days is that there's a lot more CG being used.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious about the practical versus CG. Do you kind of mix of both of them? Would you always have to know someone on set
Mhm.
and you always enhance them? Talk about using CG to enhance that and kind of get making more out of what you have on
Well,
set.
I think that a lot of the audience now just assumes everything is CG, first of all. So I remember with Samael in Hellboy 1 and with the Angel of Death on Hellboy 2, we went through huge trouble to program all the tentacles. They were programmed individually, they were moving individually. With the Angel of Death, we went through huge trouble to make the wings mechanical and all the eyes blinking. And people, sometimes I would find people that say, you know, I didn't like that it was CG. I go, it's not CG, it's a goddamn puppet. You know, and so people sometimes assume everything is CG. I think that there's not a versus. There's not a makeup versus CG. There's lazy versus creative. You know, and I think that you can have if you remember, we're old enough to have lived through the golden age of bladders in the 80s, you know, after altered states. everybody was putting bladders on every transformation, and that was lazy. It's the same as like, you have an effect that can be overused. It's an easy effect, and people tend to overuse it. That's what happens a lot with CG. But people do it not when it's the last or unique resource for the effect, but because it's the easy one. And they deal with it in post, and you throw money at it, or you throw your own time if you're the computer artist. But I think that you need to do the proper thing. I mean, if you need to upturn a car, you upturn a car for the plate. I mean, like even in Pacific Rim, a lot of the stuff that was that could have been CG, like when the baby kaiju attacks, chases Newt down the street, we literally programmed all the cars to flip, and we flipped them. We had them in pneumatics and explosives to move the way the baby was going to move. The easy thing would have been, no, let's just put CG cars. But I think there's something nice about blending the two techniques. So I think it's just you use the technique that is the only technique that would work for that effect. And if not, then no, you can do bad makeup, you can do bad creatures, you can do bad CG if it's lazy. Any of the techniques, if it's used just as a lazy tool, is bad. I like CG. I cannot build a 25-foot story robot, and I cannot believe that I can, even if I enhance it, a man in a suit could not work now, But even in Pacific Rim, again, we build miniatures. For example, the shot of the fist going into the office, that's a whole miniature with desks, computers, lamps, everything in miniature. And then the last desk is a real-size desk. So, you mix the techniques, but you need a willing partner. ILM is John Knoll, who was the supervisor on Pacific, loves miniatures as much as I love miniatures. So we were willing to spend the extra money to have a physical miniature. And when the Jaeger lands in the middle of the stadium in Hong Kong, we built the seats of the stadium to fly them up, and then you hide them with elements and all that. But there are miniature elements.
Michael.
Guillermo, welcome to Fantasia.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. First time.
I have been thoroughly enjoying the strain on
Okay.
television, and I want to thank you for that. I'm interested in what the difference would be, or what the difference has been for you to do that on television rather than a feature film, and if you could speak about the master and the creation of the master.
The strain is really, after the first season, is really Carlton Cuse, and it's Carlton's baby. I having co-written the books with Chuck Hogan, I'm too close to the books. I suffer a lot if there's a change, and there's a lot of changes. They kill people that we don't kill in the book. They kill them on the second season. The people that we killed in the first book live forever. So and there are many changes. What I think is interesting is we went through adapting it to comics for Dark Horse, and it was a seamless experience because it was the books enhanced. On TV, you learn very quick that the dynamics of a TV show are very different. Some characters that were meant to last and have to end quickly, blah blah blah. The master, for me, the great thing is that he changes bodies. That was the thing that was interesting for me, that you don't have a single actor doing it, and again, there is, to me, there is the first time the master is shown on the screen. To me, it was not well lit. I was doing my day job. I was shooting, and I was not on the set that day, and I don't like the way it's lit. I think it's lit flat, and there's no makeup that can look great if it's flat. Later, the next episode, I was there, and I made sure that he was lit nicely, And then I think what I love about him, and it's revealed season by season and in the books, is that he's pure hunger. It's a creature of pure hunger. Now the TV show and the books sort of diverted after the second season, and I think the series is going to have a different finale than the books. So it's interesting to me. I remember Mike Mignola telling me about Hellboy. how weird it was for him that Hellboy was not his Hellboy. That Hellboy would have never fallen in love with Liz. You know, that Abe would not have been an empath or a telepathic fish. You know, he was like, you have no idea how weird it feels. And I was like, ah, come on. And now I understand it, you know, because it does feel strange to see something you did transform.
They're not going to nuke the master?
Oh, I won't say. I wouldn't say we're going to be here that much, but it's going to be a good ending.
Okay.
It's a brutal ending.
Right here.
When you have changes proposed by a studio or a television series, as a very passionate creator, how do you traverse these things and, manage not to strangle everybody when they want changes that you necessarily don't want?
That hasn't happened since 1997. On the TV series, I'm not the showrunner. I do every makeup, every single effect you see in the series, I supervise. The digital effects on the Strain to this day. And I color correct all the episodes of the Strain. So that I do. I talk to Carlton, but Carlton runs the show. And I have to literally give it to him. If I'm directing, I haven't done anything I didn't want since 1997. So if you don't like something in my movies, it's my fault. You know, and if you like it, I'm happy. But I learned an incredibly useful word in 1997, which is no. You know, and it's a word that I knew, but I didn't know how to use. Because when you're a young filmmaker and you're making movies, you make them because everybody loves you, and you're like a dancing bear, you know, like and everybody comes to you and you help, and then after that you gotta become a bit of a motherfucker. And they respect that more. I mean, so I learned to say no early on, very strongly, early enough, and not feel. It's a strange thing when I had my first kid. You know, I saw the baby and I thought, I gotta fight for this baby. I'm a very nice guy, but if I need to defend this baby's livelihood. And that's the way I feel about the movies. I'm a very nice guy in real life, but if I don't do anything I don't want to do in the movies, nothing. So all those mistakes you see in my movies are mine. You know, it's truly, if you allow it, no one loses but you as a director, you know? Because if you don't like a movie of mine, I can respond for it. I can tell you, well, this is what I was trying to do. Maybe it didn't work for you, but this is what I was trying to do, and I can explain it. I can tell you my theory behind it, and I blah blah. But if I did something that you don't like, and I know, and I go, I know, it's horrible. It's horrible. That happened to me on Mimic in '97, and it never again. You know, so it doesn't happen.
You know, when speaking of Mimic, in recent years we've seen a lot of filmmakers going back, sometimes decades later, to restore a film to their original vision. It happened with Richard Donner in Superman 2, for example, which was replaced by Richard Lester. Is there any chance with the existing outtakes, whatever, on Mimic to?
Well, we did
vision?
a director's cut years ago, and it came out on Blu-ray and DVD, and it's a little better, but it's sort of a mangled, the mangled remains of what I wanted to do. Was never made. You know, I wanted originally the couple of Mira and Peter was an interracial couple originally, and it was very important for me that it was that in '97. And I remember the comments that were made. I cannot, for legal reasons, go into that, but there were people very opposed back then, tremendously opposed. I wanted, because I didn't want the white family to survive. I wanted humanity to survive. And I can go into the screenplay we did with John Sayles was perfect, a great screenplay. I really liked it. And at the end, to give you an example, the leucistic male it came to her, and as it was a creature with all these long legs, and then it started folding, and it went into the shadows. And when it came out, he looked exactly like a human being, without clothes. It had folded into sort of this Da Vinci-esque perfect creature with cracks where the shell became together. And it walked to Mira Sorvino, and raised the finger and said, leave. So it spoke. And that was for me the scary ending, was they look like us and they are now talking. When I started Mimic, I said, I will not use guns, and there will be no explosions. And how those Mimic end? With guns and explosions. So that's where I learned. That's where I learned, because then I loved the fact that Mimic, even although it had 2 sequels, direct to video and all that, I'm glad it didn't do well, because I would have been completely insane. I would have gone, so I went against my instincts. I did something I didn't like, and it did very well. So I'm completely lost in the woods. But I thought, okay, I'm not going to do this again.
Great. Mike?
You've shepherded some very talented young filmmakers
Yeah.
recently, like Andres Machete on Mama.
Yeah.
Have you seen anyone, more recently coming up that you think is really promising?
Well, yeah, I retired from production. I decided I'm going to produce only things that I was contractually, because when you produce, you end up, it's such a huge effort, and you realize that you could have made another movie as director, So I'm going to just do my day job. I'm just going to direct. But yes, I produced, I think, 8 first-time filmmakers. And I produced, I think, close to 20 movies. So I did that, But I wanted to produce first-time filmmakers because I thought it was necessary, to have a Andy Muschietti or Juan Antonio Bayona, or Jorge with The Book of Life, people that needed to exist in order to create movies that I love, that I think were necessary in the genre. I think I'm very proud of some of them very much, but I watch constantly, and I'm friendly with young filmmakers. I contact them, or they contact me through Twitter, or they contact me socially, and I talk to them. I cannot talk to everyone. I'm not a Teletubby. I'm not a perfect happy creature, But I try to interact with a lot of people. Back in the day, it was Larry Fessenden, for example, in the late 20th century, Or now I can go have lunch with Ty West, or people that I admire and I like what they're doing. Recently, I saw this amazing movie called Spring that I completely went apeshit over, and I contacted the filmmakers and said I want to have lunch. I'm not going to produce, but I can be a I can be a friend, I can be an ally, I can give advice. There's a couple of brothers, there's 2 young filmmakers that had done a movie that I helped them finish. It never got distributed. Now they did a series for Netflix that just started. They wrote me to thank you for what I did back in the day. So I remain in contact, but I admire horror film when it's done in a way that is personal. The Babadook, I love It Follows. I thought it was fantastic. So I stay in touch as much as I can.
I wonder if you're the kind of filmmaker who goes back often and watch your old films. And if
Me?
So, yeah.
My films?
Your own films.
Oh no.
No?
No. And when there's a curious thing that happens. Sometimes it happens that I'm switching channels and I go, oh, that looks good, and I go back and it's one of mine, and I go, come on, But that happens now and then, and then I stop. I'm probably getting dressed. I have one sock on and another sock in my hand, and I watch a couple of shots and I go, oh, that's nice, or oh, that's shit, depending on the sequence. I go, well, I like it if it's a sequence I like, but no, I don't imagine that. I see them enough making them, that I see them 70, 80 times complete when I'm making them. I don't want to see them again,
Yeah, and Red?
Hey, going back to your films, like, you're getting at something very personal, like Devil's Backbone, all the ways to something immense, like Pacific Rim.
Mm-hmm.
How do you maintain that, like, personal level?
Well, I don't do any movie that I wouldn't be willing to die for. Like I've had on my lap movies that are huge, that become huge franchises, but I don't believe in them, or I don't believe I'm the right guy, and I say no, because when you take a movie, you're accepting that you're going to disappear from your family's life 3 years, basically. You know, you're going to become this creature comes in at night, exhausted and grumpy, and you fall face down on the bed, and you know, it's like the ending of Bridge of Spies. You know, you come back home, you fall down, and you better have gone save the world somehow in your mind, you know. So no matter what movie it is, I do it because I love it. Like I was the crazy kid that loved kaiju movies, and Ultra 7 and Ultraman, and you know, all the Suburaya monsters, and I needed to do that. I needed to have, you know, a robot fighting a monster in my toy chest, you know, and it's the same. Other movies that have come my way, I don't connect with. So in every movie, and actually, if you watch them together, they all have a thread, thematic or visual, or you know, it's the same guy. And I remember talking to Alfonso Cuarón when he was going to go do the Harry Potter movie, his Harry Potter movie, and he was saying, you know, what do you think, what should I do to make sure this movie is a movie of mine? I said, you know, we're like criminals. We're gonna, if we really go and do the crime, if we do it promiscuously, you know, we're gonna leave DNA behind. They're gonna find it. People are gonna collect it and say, he did it. You know, if you don't do it like that, then it's gonna show. You know, if your God is not in it, if there's no moment in which you are truly and fully in love, you need to get high on your own supply when you're doing the movies. You know, and I get high on my own supply in every movie. It makes no difference what movie it is. It's Hellboy or Hellboy 2 or Blade, or you know. The movie where I came in, where like on Blade 2, I went in because I wanted to do the Reapers and the vampires, and I wanted Nomak. I went and I met with Wesley Snipes, and I said, let me make one thing clear. I don't understand Blade. I don't know why he kills vampires. I wouldn't kill them. I would live with them. I said, but you take care of Blade, I'll take care of the rest. You know? And I said to Mike DeLuca, I said, I'm the most unhip motherfucker you're ever gonna meet. I don't know what music kids are listening to. I don't trance dance. I don't do E. I don't fucking wave the glow stick. I don't do any of that shit. But I know monsters, so I'll do the monsters, and I'll make it a dirty, fucking, full of liquids, 6-pack of a movie. You know, like I'll make it fun. So there's different entryways. You know, but then I got offered. What is it called, the Narnia movies, and I read the books, but I'm a lapsed Catholic. I'm not interested in seeing the fucking lion resurrect. So I said, no, I don't want the lion to resurrect, and you're not going to like that, you know?
Right here.
But you also see it's more with animation, CGI. Do you see yourself collaborating with some of the people who work on the city that you do in your future?
Here. Well, I would hope so. I like the city. I mean, I just arrived today. It's too early to make a commitment. But I like the poutine. But for sure, I mean, I like, in Toronto I've been basing a lot of the stuff I do in Toronto, and I do have good relationships there. We've gone through Book of Life there, and we did a good chunk of the Troll Hunter series that is going to come out on Netflix later this year. You know, so I tried to create a link with the city. And the movie I'm making now, which is a smaller budget movie, for Fox Searchlight, called The Shape of Water. Most of my HODs are Canadian. The costume designer, production designer, you know, sound designer, final mix, blah, blah. I'm trying to make, not to use Canada as a service country, but use it as a creative country, which is incredibly creative, you know. It's beautiful, beautiful soul.
This guy over here.
I was wondering if you could talk to the process of trying to put At the Mountains of Madness together, and do you think you're going to revisit that at any time, or any other Lovecraft material?
Well, imagine that you had a horrible miscarriage that left a lot of scars, and you're still dangling a piece of placenta when I'm answering that. I mean, it was a brutal. That thing really got at me. You know, I went and I worked for. Before I went into the pre-production process. I have put over a decade and a half into it. You know, first getting the rights of the book, because it's one of the few books of H.P. Lovecraft that is not in public domain, regardless of what people think. We had to track the chain of title. We got the rights. Writing the screenplay, if any of you has ever written a screenplay, it takes a while. You know, you finally think you cracked it, blah, blah, blah. And then we went and designed everything. I can show you an ILM test and about 200 pieces of design of the city, the creatures, everything, and about 700 storyboards. We did all that, and it would break your heart. It really was a great monster movie and a great movie. And then we got Jim Cameron to produce and Tom Cruise to star in, and then they say no. I was flying in a helicopter over the border of Alaska, seeing a pack of wolves crossing a frozen lake beneath the helicopter. I landed in a little refuge in the middle of nowhere. We were scouting for Antarctica, you know, and I get a call that says, "You